For those sensitive to clipped audio, you have my apologies. There were some issues during recording that I did not notice until after the fact. I hope you can still enjoy this great interview. Something incredibly important when picking up on a topic is deferring properly to experts when you're not sure about it. So I have located an amazing expert. This is PA Sword.
Hey, how you doing, Tim?
Excellent, and I am very much in need of your insights as we're talking about how people see rosters. In Palette Swap, the roster has gotten incredibly massive, but in some ways I think it's an expansion on the base problem slash best part of Marvel 3 is that you have to pick three characters, and when you're new to the game, how you foresee what you do with those three characters is, I think, very different than other games where you see one top tier character, you pick it, and you may stay with it forever. This is what we describe in Street Fighter 4 as chronic Akuma syndrome. Definitely fell into this, but I think in Marvel 3, you find one character you like, and then find maybe two characters that make your first character more usable, I think is what I would describe as the baby step. But I'm really curious to see what you're seeing when new players or new rookies come in and how they're trying to build their teams.
So a lot of times when we get a new player in the scene, they already have at least one character in mind, like you mentioned. A lot of players gravitate towards more of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We see a lot of Captain America, a good bit of Iron Man, not so much Hawkeye, and Thor. We see a couple of those characters come across, and then you have your mainstream from the Capcom side, and your Wolverine and your Magneto. Um, so we have players like that come in that have that kind of intro to the Marvel scene via the MCU. Then you have your Capcom holdouts that really gravitate towards Ryu and Zero and Akuma, your major names that came out of the Capcom side on that roster. But you are exactly right. Both in terms of palette swap and even vanilla Marvel, we are blessed with the curse of having at least 50 characters to choose from and only being able to play with three. So what we try to do is we try to look at a player and see what they like and plan around how they're going to play that character. Essentially, we don't want to give a new player, a character they want to play. Like if they want to play Captain America, we don't want to necessarily say you must play, for example, Doom and Strider. I guess I'm not super big on the Captain America specifics, but we try to steer them in a way that they're going to genuinely learn the character, genuinely learn the game, and actually have a chance of success in the game. Whereas if you come in and you say, I want to play, Hishenko Ryu Nemesis, you're probably not going to have a good time playing. So we do try to steer away from that as well.
I think something that's really interesting about the growth of learning to play Marvel 3 is that you will find weird instances where the wrong team is for the right player. I am not digging at Nick Bad. Nick Bad is one of my best friends, but like his team, a lot of people when you listen to commentary comment there isn't that much synergy between Captain America, Deadpool, and Strider. He runs Deadpool's OTG assist, which famously uses up one of your combo tools, but for Nick Bad, it gives him such an exhilaratingly high offense Captain America play that it really pushes his best quality. And I think that's the weird thing about Marvel is you can give people the wrong team, but it just makes the right player.
So first off, shout out to Nick Bad. He knocked me out of TNS9 actually on game 5. He made the most perfect adjustment I've ever seen and completely rinsed me. So shout out to him for that. It was wild. It was the most fun I've ever had on an IRL set. In an actual tournament, that was my favorite set. Yeah, period. But when we're teaching players how to play against characters or teams, there's kind of two ways to think about it, right? You have what the character can actually do. You know that, and I'm going to take Wesker because he's a very basic character. You know that his game plan is gunshot neutral, and either rush you down or make you pay for a mistake, right? That's generally his game plan. However, when you play, for example, my Wesker versus playing Tony Killa's Wesker, there's two different styles there. So learning how to play against the character is good, but sometimes in the case where you have a Nick Bad that plays a team that, like you said, just that should not work on paper. That there's no reason why that works. You're not playing against that team anymore. You're actually playing against the player. And I think that's a big skill for players, newer players to learn, is identifying when they need to be playing against the character and playing against tendencies. Your more meta teams, your zero teams, your Morgan teams, most meta Magneto teams, Nova, you are playing against the team, but you play against the player when you get the mid-tier teams, the Captain Americas, the weird Wesker teams, any kind of V Joe players, just weird Ryu play. Like when you get to that mid-tier matchups, you stop playing against what you think is going to happen that the character can do, and you have to kind of readjust to what the player you're playing against is doing.
I think, like, yeah, how are you, I guess, observing things? Because I think introspection sometimes can adjust teams. As I paired Dormammu with Wesker being one of those Wesker gorillas, because after Phantom Dance ends, I wanted a super that kept the opponent locked down, because I hated giving back neutral because I knew I never killed with Wesker. So I just made it so I didn't give back neutral.
Mm-hmm. So adjustments I'm making on the fly are things that I'm kind of looking for mid set, right? How do they approach me? How, if it's an extended neutral sequence, how are they reacting to what I'm doing? As one of Wesker's biggest fanboys in this community, I understand how the neutral is played with Wesker. So when I start to do things in a more predictable pattern, I may not be doing it predictably to me or to you, but I'm trying to set you up to see what you do so I can then react to that. It's not necessarily the best way to play. Definitely the best way to play Marvel is to absolutely make sure your opponent does not get to play the game. 100% bar none. If your opponent does not play, you are winning. They're not having a good time. You should win that set. However, in your instance where you say, I don't like to give back neutral, well, your two options then are to do what you currently do, which is Phantom Dancer into Cheeseball, which still keeps your pressure, or you optimize your combo, which is what I have done. So there's two different ways to kind of go about it and to look at it. It's really dependent on how the player plays or your opponent plays. If you're playing against somebody, looking to see what reads they make on you, how you can adjust your playstyle to counter those. In my example with Game 5 and Nick, he beat me Game 1, I beat him Game 2 and 3, then he made the adjustment Game 4 and fully made the adjustment Game 5. So he picked up on my tendencies by Game 3, and I didn't adjust in time for Game 5.
Flexibility overall. When pointing, I guess, trying to hone the eyes of a rookie looking at the roster, are small adjustments or rotating assist considered, like, as we just saw, TJ, he's recently been playing Rocket Punch over drones, which most people consider to be the substandard assist setup for Hulk. But those extra touch of deaths in some of those situations really were elevating TJ to an absolute high level of play. And like, when you're looking at rookies, like, do assist choices and looking at how they're using their tools factor in this way?
We generally don't really harp on assist usage too much. When when a new player comes in or a rookie comes in, our first question is, what do you want to do in the game? Do you want to plink dash across screen? Do you want to run around like a nut with Wolverine? Do you want to play a more tactical play style with Wesker? Do you want to play the zero route or the Morgan's bullet spam? We ask what you want to play, and then we base your answer off of that. We give you team options, and generally speaking, we'll give you, we'll tell you, if you're running Morgan, the optimal assist is generally missiles. However, if you find that you're struggling with your, your fireball patterns, we may say go to rocks or go to plasma beam. We'll tailor our suggestions on assists based on, what you're struggling with to get you going. But once you get past that part of, okay, now I'm starting to understand why I'm struggling, I call Morgan and I get counter called by magnetoplasma, and I keep losing off of that. Once you make the adjustment so that you don't lose to that, because you may have made the adjustment to go to, plasma beam, I guess, or whatever adjustment you made, will then tell you, okay, this is working for you now, but in the future, you're going to want to begin to experiment with going to missiles. Or, in TJ's case, he understands, he's got that team to such a science that he can literally forego a neutral assist at high level play for combo damage. That's a testament to TJ and his growth in the last year and a half. I would say, if you're a new player and you're looking for the blueprint and the roadmap to being successful in the game, I will look to TJ personally. He's a much better player than I could ever hope to be, and I've been playing this game for 12 years. He's put in 18 months and waxes me. So when we look at, things like that, adjustments and whatnot, I follow his example. And he got to the point where he's just so good with that team that he doesn't need neutral assists. He doesn't need to rely on drones to get him in. And that's not a knock on anybody that does. You see a lot of high level players that run drones, Ray, Ronin, Joker. You see all them are not, I'm sorry, not Joker, but you see them running drones because it's a good neutral assist, but he's just so good you don't need it.
Looking at other players, is there an element when coaching players to pick their characters that you need to feel the need to promote expanding beyond what they already know? Because I feel like if you talk to people, like, and somebody asks what's the best team for Hulk, the general answer is big bodies. But in X Factory, we have Tudamax, a player who has brought Nova in as a complementary pairing with Hulk. And it's in some ways incredibly genius. We're trying to flip the team on its head as Hulk becomes the defensive assist as well as support character. And that's the question I asked. Like, how much is letting people fly with their own attempts at teams involved with rookies at the moment?
We do get a lot of kind of fly by your seat kind of teams. Kind of just, it looks like three characters thrown together, but and you gave Tudamax as a great example. I look to Sparty as kind of my weird team mascot, if you will. On paper, those teams aren't good. They lack a lot of the traditional tools, right? Tudamax is completely reliant on going in. He can play defense because of the Hulk assist, but everything he's going to get is going to come off of going in. You look at Sparty, and everything comes off of Iron Fist, right? Does the Wolverine dorm work? Absolutely. Angelic has made it work for years. However, Sparty gets most of his mileage off of the the Iron Fist assist. So when we look at rookies who come in, and a lot of the newer players that we get in do see the highlights. Sparty did, top 6 at Evo with Wolverine, Dorm, Iron Fist. Like, that brought in so many views for him, and it brought eyes to the scene. It was good for the scene, and I do not take it, out of context. I think he's a great player, but I think when players come in and they try to build around the team composition he set, there is an inherent ceiling there. There is a reason why Wolverine. There is a reason why there's only been one Wolverine Evo winner, and it's Justin freaking Wong. Like, there's only been one top 6 Iron Fist, and it was Sparty. There's reasons for that, because those characters have a hard ceiling that not even the best players can consistently take to the top. We try to temper the expectations of those players. Like, yes, we're not telling you don't play, Ryu, Storm, Hashenko. Like, if you want to play that in your own time, you do what you want to do. But if you want to be successful in this game, you're going to either going to not be successful with that team, period, or you're going to have to work ridiculously hard and hope that one day your hard work gets you to the mountaintop. A mountaintop that, mind you, has been continuing to get better in the last few years.
I do recall that one. There was a time and place where people were constantly dropping lightning loops, or they were having issue on one side or the other, and then you see people like Yuli or Remora who can do them in lag at weird heights and adjustments.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that we preach to the rookies. You got to be willing to put the time in. And I think that that's kind of the biggest shock factor when it comes to learning this game. Like, you see it on TNS, you see it on Rise of Rookies, you see it on Avengers, you see it, with UG and whomever else is holding brackets. A lot of the top players make it look oh so easy. Remora doing, lightning loops in ADMS. Nick Bad playing Coast to Coast in Avengers just because he loves palette swap. Same but they've been playing for years. This isn't a game that you can just pick up and play. And that seems to be, I think that's kind of the biggest roadblock, the biggest mental hurdle is it's fun to watch at a casual level. It's sort of fun to just like mash buttons, but if you actually want to get better, which is what most of the rookies want to do, they're learning that they have to be willing to practice and be able to do those lightning loops in ADMS like Remora does and like Yuli does, like you said.
Note of Spartan Throne in particular, I imagine there are a certain number of players coming into Rise of Rookies who have nothing as a prior basis. I mean, I believe Chris G started as a Smash Brothers player before becoming one of the most marvelous players in EVO. And in that regard, how much are certain players like Spartan Throne or other things used as an example to hone players in the concept that his team you'll probably not be able to execute, but his game plan of constant 50-50s with a powerful assist that really can't be counterplayed in some scenarios, how often does that get used as a means to motivate or train players who probably have a lot less to base than some of us who started with Street Fighter or Soul Calibur, for example?
Unfortunately, I'd like to say that we do a great job of supporting those players that want to play those kind of low tier hero teams, but we do a good job of being very blunt. We don't ever shrug anybody off and say, "Oh, you want to play, Wolverine, Dorm, Iron Fist? Go screw yourself. We're not going to help you." We'll still give you tips and advice, but we're not going to be as vested in you in your future until you finally realize that, wait a minute, Iron Fist kind of sucks. Wolverine kind of sucks on his own. Like, can they do it? Yes. We definitely live by a motto of, we'll let you learn it, we'll help you learn it, but we're not going to put serious time until you learn and understand that your current team isn't the way to be successful. Our Discord is modeled very strongly towards learning the game and doing well with the game, not necessarily with learning the game and doing well with Iron Fist, if that makes sense. We try to tailor it to how will you be successful in your Marvel career, not necessarily with the Marvel characters or the Capcom characters.
Forgive me, I may have misphrased that one slightly. I was talking about when instructing players who are new to the scene, who don't have the prior basis that you pick up in something like Street Fighter about how cross-ups, poke mix-ups, or hold forward to throw interactions work. Do you use players like Sparty and the fact that their team runs on a very obvious and easy to see cross-up or other game plan as a way to hone their eyes to, when you're building a team, something like a forced 50-50 at mid-screen, a la Dante, Deadpool, things like that? Does that come into the honing, specifically when you have players who have no prior experience with even 2D fighters?
Not necessarily like the low tier hero teams. We're not gonna really be. You're not gonna see us in the Discord, espousing, "Hey guys, like watch out for Wolverine, Iron Fist." We're gonna be giving more practical 50-50s, right? We're gonna be giving them the Dante, Deadpool, incoming shenanigans, the Evo winner. We're gonna be showing them those 50-50s. Things are gonna be more likely to see when they enter a Rise of Rookies bracket, a Avengers bracket, a TNS bracket, UG, whatever it may be. We try to tailor it, all of our new learning tools towards the practical. Once you get to the level where you've mastered the practical, or you've got a really good grasp, then we're going to start to throw in the impact, the Wolverine Iron Fist, mix-ups, those level of mix-ups.
Mm-hmm. And on a similar note, when players are pursuing a well-known team that utilizes non-traditional gameplay style, like Gene teams or Frank teams, how do you work with players when moving into that sort of realm of difficult territory?
The Marvel community has pretty much come to an unspoken agreement, right? Snap Gene, unless you're playing Spencer or you've got the Anti-Phoenix tech on lock, and you're more like mini game based characters, kind of like, Frank, you have to level up. Strange really kind of gets going once he has Grace's set up. Same with, I don't want to say Dorm because he doesn't have like a mini game. Phoenix Wright. Things that have kind of an element of, I really have to set this up, or I'm not a character, or I'm a really bad character. Then we give them the, kill the point, snap the anchor. Then you leave them with the baseline character. And T-Hawk has the funniest saying: "If you lose to anchor, Frank, that's on you, bro. You got hit. We can't out-train. We can't teach you that. There's some characters that are that fair that if you get hit, you get hit." So we give them the advice for them to be successful against those specific characters. If you have a Phoenix Wright, either kill him before he gets three pieces of evidence, or snap him out if you're not comfortable with the matchup. I personally always snap him for the anchor because Phoenix Wright ain't scary. It's not a real character if he doesn't have, three pieces of evidence. But then again, don't tell that to I Heart Justice. He'll wax me. So we give them the more practical, what you should do in this situation levels advice when it comes to those I'm going to say gimmick characters, but those characters that have an extra layer of thinking involved with fighting them.
poaching a player who is playing, say, a Phoenix team, considering we now have like 3 active shells that have proven that Gene can still play at the top level between Ryan LV, Noel Be Hungry, and Mothman. But all 3 of those teams play off of like one heavy fundamental. Either it's extreme keep away, extreme mix up, or extreme neutral in the case of Chun-Li.
My advice for any, I'm not a, I don't play Gene. I don't pretend to play Gene. Like, I have a funny Wesker Moore Gene team that I think I've played once seriously. But my advice for anybody looking to play against Gene, or to play Gene, be comfortable playing her when you don't have 5 bars. Because that character, if you do not know how to protect your point, if you don't know how to maneuver the screen and not get hit, your point character is going to be snapped out by 95% of the player base. The 5% that isn't snapping, you have even more things to worry about because you're going to get anti-Phoenix. You're going to get hit by, the Spencer shenanigans or whatever other anti-Phoenix tech exists. Be ready to play neutral with her. Be ready to play her as a solo character. Jean is a fundamentally good character. We keep her in the back because she is one of the most broken fighting game characters of all time with X Factor. But on point, she's extremely strong. She has very fast buttons, very good normals, very good projectiles. Her teleports are very fast. The problem is she just doesn't have any health. She literally cannot get hit. So if you're looking to play Jean, practice playing her in the neutral. Practice getting out of the incoming and learning when you can swing and when you can safely get her out.
And I'm going to continue somewhat on the note of teams and experience. So, as Rise of Rookies is an excellent mentoring service for various changes in a player's expansion up to the higher rank, how do you improve players when they're trying to pivot between 2 teams or potentially pick up a pocket that is deliberately chosen to be different than their base team to try and deal with problems they feel like their current team can't match?
We generally will tell people stick to your guns. Learn. It's a rookie server. It's Rise of Rookies for a reason. You're there to learn. There will be matchups that are absolute 9-1 nightmares. Doom Hawkeye. Well, pretty much, any one of Doom's top 5 worst matchups are 9-1 or 8-2. They're just absolutely abhorrent for him. But he's a good assist character, right? So we try to encourage the rookies to stick with what they want to play or what they're learning, right? If it gets to the point where they're just like, man, I'm playing Iron Fist, and I just can't get through MODOK, right? I've tried everything, I just cannot do it. I have swapped to Strider assist. I've tried putting Wesker on the team, his traditional counters, run missiles. It's just not working. I cannot do the matchup at all. At that point, that's when we begin to look at you as a player and identify, is this team actually right for you? At a high level, you don't see side teams in Marvel. This isn't like Street Fighter where, Hugo had an awful matchup versus Sagat. So instead of playing, Hugo into Sagat, you may play, Evil Ryu for the matchup, or Akuma or something like that. Marvel, you don't have that much of a luxury. There's not a lot of counter picking you can do at a base level to start with. On an individual character basis, you're often better looking at an entire team change. Sometimes it may be just, swapping the Wesker for Magneto, and now you have a better Morgan team. Absolutely. But we want you to exhaust all possible avenues with your current team before making the switch. Or you hit that hard wall where you're like, you know what? I've been playing, Daywalker for 8 straight years. This is a personal experience. I played it for 8 straight years. 1-2-2-2 consistent tournament results. Just could not get over. And I experimented with Wesker for a time, just didn't get over the hump. And then T-Hawk put me onto Zero, and I'm not the biggest fan of Zero. I'm not going to sit here and preach him. I think he's not great for the health of the game. But I'll say I got more wins with Zero because I needed to make that adjustment. I needed a character that better fit, and the Zero Missiles playstyle fits better for me than the Daywalker playstyle, and a little better than the Wesker playstyle. So we try to get players to really go through their mind, think about what they want to do, and force them. I don't want to say force, because you can play whatever team you want, but really try to emphasize learning your main team and getting past the weaknesses of it.
So much so far. These answers have been incredibly good at delving into Moonsits. But if I might ask one last question, considering we are potentially coming into the era of more versus style fighting games, as well as the resurrection of older prior ones, what do you think when talking about rookies or even just regular players are the skills that you take away from Marvel 3, the core elements that you'll always need in the game, and will be also useful when going into something like 2x KO or even back to Marvel 2 or 1?
So my primary game has been Marvel 3 since 2010, 2011, whenever it came out first. Marvel 3 and then Ultimate. I dabbled in Street Fighter Street Fighter 4 or 5 and the abomination that I think is 6, but that's a hot take. You might have to edit that one out. I think the core tenets of Marvel don't translate well to other generic 2D fighters. I haven't gotten my hands on Project L, 2X KO. So I can't really make a determination as far as will your Marvel skills translate well over into that. I think the ability to block mix-ups, like I think playing Marvel, you have to have the best defense out of any fighting game. I think there's so much random bullshit that you can get hit by, that if you are proficient in Marvel defense, you have a baseline level of defense in literally any other fighting game. As far as offense and concepts go, I think that your Marvel 3 experience may hinder you. Marvel 2 plays different than Marvel 3. Marvel 3 played way differently than Infinite, and that's not touching on this, just systems changes or the character changes. Going from Marvel to Street Fighter 4 as a personal example, I had the hardest time of not jumping, because Marvel is so ingrained that we're in the air, we're plinking around with Magneto, or we're teleporting with Wesker, or we're dolphin kicking with Nova. We're constantly moving, right? And in Street Fighter, it's very much a patient man's game. Let me throw my string, and let me throw my string. If it's a safe string, I'm good. If it's not, then I'm gonna get punished for it. Don't jump. Jumping is not good in Street Fighter. It's something that I had to unlearn because, again, I was a Marvel player. And I also think that, and I was never. I don't claim to be a high level any game player. Maybe Tetris and Dr. Mario, but I'm not the highest level Marvel player, and I'm certainly not a high level Street Fighter player or Tekken player or anything like that. But I definitely don't think that the Marvel offense translates well into 3D fighters or even platform fighters. I think Marvel is a unique game. I don't think it can ever be replicated. It doesn't matter how many Battle for the Grids come out. Doesn't matter how many 2X KOs come out. How many Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond DLCs come out. Marvel 3 is a unique game, and I don't think that it will ever be replicated. I think you can take the defensive principles you learn in Marvel to other games, but I think the offense is just too far out to be properly translated over into other games.
Very much. Now, I, as a matter of equal respect, would like to ask if you have any questions you'd like to ask me or anything you'd like to posit to either the other people who will be on the regular podcast couch or even just players in general listening. Anything
So
strikes your mind?
I didn't like QA. You just full disclosure to everybody that listens to this recording in the future. It's just a simple DM Tim sent me, and hey, you want to do a podcast? How did I? Full disclosure, Rise of Rookies is actually in this process of starting a podcast up, and we had ideas, but you beat us to the punch on it, and kudos to you. But where did what gave you the inspiration to start it?
This is a fantastic question. It's technically part of my college degree. I have a college degree from the University of Wisconsin in
Congratulations.
communication arts, radio, media, and TV. I got that about a year ago. So I've been throughout my various college classes making these for years. On my SoundCloud, there are a couple failed attempts I made, and key thing with palette swap, I get a little bit of privy information from Kevin Ha about how the analytics are doing,
Sure.
and people apparently tune in and continually want to see or ask questions more about palette swap characters. Even if it's some case trolling or why won't you make blank? It's like this takes potentially 6 months,
Definitely.
So my idea was interaction with where the people will be paying attention and in a way something that still connects back to the basic Marvel 3 community as well as potentially other versus games. But it's a strike with iron hot is about the fact that we have so few people playing the game. This entire episode in particular is about how a lot of characters are going under the radar. In the prior section of this episode, we talked about how MODOK was a character that was generally considered terrible up until I don't know, 5 years ago, where he's now considered probably up near the top of the roster in terms of tier. Because nobody wanted to commit to his tools. Nobody wanted to see how he interacts with teams. Now you go to Mothman's Twitter and he's showed off unique combos MODOK can unlock on a huge portion of the roster. And palette swaps in the same time period where there are multiple characters that I have identified alongside the modders and Isisera to be high tier, very powerful characters with insanely cheap tools. And it may be 6 months before anybody starts playing them, immediately realizes what we spotted, and the character is then abruptly nerfed by one of the modders. So this is a pursuit of me just utilizing my skill set as well as a particular interest in talking about this new environment that has led to a lot of new philosophy in the engine as well as all the things I get to observe in X Factory because of repetitive stress injuries I sustained at a prior job. My ability to really play fighting games has been heavily diminished, and at periods of time completely doesn't exist because my fingers lock up so bad. So
Ouch.
I've taken my download skill set from playing games like Skullgirls, Marvel 3. My first competitive fighting game was actually Soul Calibur 2 back on the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
And I've rehoned it to just watching players describing exactly what they're doing in commentary. And this also just means that I'm very much imbuing myself with the mindset of who's on screen. And that in itself is a useful skill set in talking about the games as well as presenting what I know to other people so that it can improve their life or gameplay or just, I don't know. I love podcasts because sometimes I'm at work and I need something to play for 8 hours or I go insane.
If I can give I don't want to say I'm bitching about it or complaining. More of a critique. You know that I kind of dabble. I've dabbled into palette swap once or twice. I am a bit of an Orange Hulk Servbot fanboy. I love those two. They shouldn't work together, but
well, they do. I've played that team.
Somehow they do. Like those two work, but it feels like most of the characters can do the exact same thing, right? Every character seems to have a wall bounce. Every character seems to have a ground bounce. Every character can OTG like 4 times in a combo, and they're just absolutely shitting damage. I don't think any of that is necessarily bad. But when you analyze that, if the same 5 characters do the same exact thing, why do I need to pick between those same 5 characters? It's essentially the Shoto problem. If Ryu and Ken do the exact same thing, why would I ever pick Ken? Ryu's the first character.
Or the Luke problem.
What's that?
Or in this case, the Luke problem that we had when Street Fighter 6 came out.
Yeah, or the Luke problem. Like, if all of your characters fundamentally do the same thing, you're going to have a lower spread of character, your who picks characters, right? And then because palette swap is very much community ran, I think Kevin's the only one that really gives full-time support to palette swap. Then we find these, broken, Devil May Cry 5 Virgil scenarios where it's like, oh, we found an infinite, and it's in mid-tournament because there's not this character spread, and everybody does the same thing. Like, if we begin to, you guys did a great job with it with base Moonstone. When Moonstone was first released, she had like a ridiculous amount of moves, and then you split her between Moonstone and I forget the other chick's name.
Captain Marvel.
And Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, I had her backwards. We had Captain Marvel, and then it was split to Moonstone. I think you guys did great with that because you took an overloaded kit and made it 2 separate identities. Whereas now Remora, who was a huge Captain Marvel player before the split, he had to really analyze, do I want to play both Captain Marvel and Moonstone? Do I just want to play Moonstone? Do I just want to play Captain Marvel? Which one fits best for me? And that gave him the option to pick it. I think that was a great way to look at characters and say, okay, all of these characters do the exact same thing. How can I split apart these movesets? How do I make them unique? All of the Resident Evil characters, they all do the same thing at a base level. They shoot gun and have knife, right? How do we make that a little different? You look at base roster Marvel, and you have 4 different Resident Evil picks. You have Nemesis, you have Jill, you have Wesker, and then you have Chris. And yes, they all shoot something. They all have a projectile, but they all function fundamentally different, right? Wesker's teleporting around. Nemesis does huge damage. Chris wants to make it more, zoner play style, and then Jill wants to get into your face. And there's not that kind of identity with the palette swap characters. Why should I play Jake when I can play Hunk? They both shoot. They both shoot guns. They both do similar things, almost, and I'm not familiar with their moveset. I'm only going by what I watch as a casual viewer. They both seem to do the same thing. Why would I ever want to pick, I like Jake more than Hunk, or I like Hunk more than Jake? Why would I pick the other? But then you find out that, oh wait, Jake does have different moves, and he does have this really broken setup that needs to be fixed, but we didn't know that because everybody's picking Hunk, because they like Hunk more. I think diversifying what characters can and can't do would be a huge boon to palette swap, and really would inject some, I don't want to say much needed identity, but it wouldn't so much rely on the nostalgia factor of the character. You're playing Captain Marvel because she can do the cool dolphin kick, photon blast combos. But you're playing, Moonstone, uh, because of whatever she can do. I think that would be great for palette swap.
And this is a fantastic thing to bring up because it has gotten dramatically better in the last 2 to 3 months. Is I think we've definitely talked about that quite a bit during the first episode, but I think this is part of the other reason why we talk about this as a podcast format is that I think no fighting game other than Palette Swap in the middle has a big thing where the creators of said characters watch the event, see what's being used in the kit, and often make heavy adjustments based off of overall playstyles. The blessed Tabs, who as of recently has been stating that he wants a lot more feedback on his characters than prior, has whole portions of his patch notes where he just says, I thought those characters' combo routes were boring, so I changed them dramatically. We saw that with Monster Hunter, who had a lot of little tweaks and changes made just last patch even. And we also just have a lot of bits and pieces about new characters being added in, or just overall conversations about what's healthy for the environment. Is that DMC5 Virgil, for example, has come in as a character that I kind of expected to do everything that has occurred at the exact moment. I think he's really worth having in the environment, at least because of his creativity element. But the creator of the character's intentions it's kind of a walking art piece. He wanted to see if you could create DMC5 combos and character concept in Marvel 3. And they exceeded all expectations of the character design. But there are just so many little layers to go through of this character whose combos are exceedingly long, and just giving them too much scaling didn't exactly fix the problem that in one early build, he had an infinite. And then in the current next build, Isocera found an entire chip loop that you couldn't escape from. And then another player found it unblockable off of a DHC. And in the event of something where I will endlessly throw shit at Luke in Street Fighter 5 and 6 because I think he could be a great character, but I don't justify how his balancing works to be a good idea. Even watching him at high level play, he is technically better than most of the other Shotos, but once in a while his stuff will just arbitrarily drop because it's a rhythm mini game with poor queuing. And I was watching like a mirror match between two of the best Lukes in the world, and one player dropped the timing on their fast light knuckle, and then they lost the round. And it's like, so the fact that he will just randomly screw up the game is a justifiable reason for a character being a Shoto who is pretty much better than every other Shoto in the game, barring Akuma. We don't have enough data. And I don't think that's the case with Palette Swap. We have the example of EMC's characters who, because the modder created them earlier into the swing, before a lot of the tools and techniques were available, they are all, in theory, art pieces designed proof of concept, newer mechanic changes, as well as repurposing moves. All of them have had to be nerfed aggressively by other members with his permission because they weren't designed as a competitive character. Initially, they were designed as proofs of concepts. And then you have Tab's characters where sometimes he allows a character to be too strong out of the gate for data collection purposes, because when he doesn't, the character will lie in utter disuse for a year. Because, I think, Charlie took almost a year before anybody played him in bracket. And then the minute somebody started playing him, Tab started tweaking the character, and he's in a very healthy spot. Or there's the whole thing with Callie and Gambit, where I really pray he doesn't change the character anymore, as after 3 or 4 iterations working with all these people who like Gambit, he is pretty much the taskmaster of Palette Swap, has a lot of tools that work, has good damage, has pretty decent pressure. He can be beat by players who know how to throw your Cajun escape or your Cajun strike. He has definitely shortcomings because he's very meter hungry, or some combo extensions just don't do any damage, but he teaches players to be a better character, and he can play with players' fundamentals as well as plinking and good options. And I think every time we have a bad tournament, things actually just get rapidly better. This includes also both Bison and Urian,
Oh my god. Those characters were abominations upon release and should never have been tournament legal for anybody. Absolutely
Kevin
wild.
didn't allow them after I think one run, and then TNS. No blame to TNS here, but they always use older builds and don't necessarily always use the same competitive rule set that we've used to ensure balance purposes. And that's nothing against them, but in some cases, palette swap and curating is very much picking what art projects actually do fit. There's a couple other modded characters that have never been added, either because they were never intended to, with like Among Shadows super characters, or just some modders put them off in proof of concepts. And yeah, we just don't consider them worthy of being good for the environment.
Well, it's interesting you say it like that, because when we look at like full stop Rise of Rookies doesn't, partake in palette swap. We support y'all. We'll have your back. We're never gonna clown on you guys, but we're not actively out here running tournaments. That's not the point of the Rise of Rookies server. Our server is geared towards learning vanilla Marvel. Whereas vanilla Marvel was designed by Capcom. Everything was done by non-players, right? The frame data came up with. I would put money that who made Wolverine's crouch light a 4 frame and a stand jab a 5 frame. I have no idea. I would argue that it wasn't a fighting game player. I would argue it was probably a coder that looked at it and said, "That's that doesn't fit within our series." Whereas palette swap creators, y'all do so much work. Do not take this as disrespect. Y'all also play the game, so there is an inherent bias towards the characters you make. You said it perfectly, and again, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm using this as an example. Tabs changed one of the characters' combo routing because simply he didn't like it. I think he did it to Evil Ryu. And I loved Evil Ryu. He had the cool axe kick combos. Like, yeah, they were kind of boring, but he made the decision not based necessarily. He could have taken it into account, and we're not in Tab's head. Like, we don't know what he's thinking, but the evidence at hand leads me to believe that he looked at the combos. You're like, man, this looks boring, so I'm going to change it. But didn't factor in that just because you think a combo is boring doesn't necessarily mean you should change it, right? Like, there was that bias there that he thought it was boring, not that it was too high damaging, that it built too much meter, that it was built too little meter, didn't do enough damage. There was no hard evidence. It was a completely emotional based decision that he gave us. Now, whether or not the actual reason was that, and there was something changed behind the scenes that he just didn't want to say, is not, we don't know, and could be relevant to this conversation. But when you start making character changes because you, the creator, you specifically do not like them, I don't think that's inherently good for the community either. I think you have every right to your character, and do not get me wrong. If you make a character, you can make 1,000 changes to it. But if you're going to make a character and you're going to release it to the community as a patch, you then need to either allow the community to have a say in the changes that need to be made, or you don't change the character based on your own biases. You have to remain impartial, or you have to remain fully flexible as far as the people that also play this character should have a say in it, or nobody's going to have a say in it, and we're not changing the character.
No, I completely get that, and comparatively, I describe it as heavy is the crown for those who wear it. Is that the big thing with Tabs, Kali, Shuma, Tree Wiz, Isisera, and Hefnoff, is they have specifically designed their characters for the palette swap scene, and that means that they were in some regards given obligation and almost a full-time job, because every once in a while someone else's work will fuck up yours. Like, this character would not be considered good, but then someone introduces, say, Servbot or another character that makes the combo routing way too strong. Like, Isisera's Gloria has actually caused the scaling on a few supers to get nerfed, because they probably shouldn't have been this way to begin with, but even after long combos, they just did too much damage. So
well, she's always said that character was designed to build meter and shit damage on the super and do nothing else.
Such it is, and that character is also, under Isisera's own admittance last episode, going to get quite a few changes too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not like palette swap super god over here. I'm very, very, very casual. I think I'm 2 builds behind the latest build right now that you guys released. And I do, like you said, these creators are spending, hours on hours, and I will always appreciate them for doing it. I think that palette swap has had a, whatever negatives you want to say about palette swap, balancing, whatever, it has had a positive effect in the growth of the community. And I don't think you can argue that. I think every one of the creators that you listed, those that even do the side mods, like Zeno doing a lot of the character, the color swaps and costumes and whatnot, whomever made the counter, the modders on the side have an indelible effect on this community, and they are not shouted out enough. So thank you to you guys for doing all of the work on palette swap.
The happy medium for this whole thing is that as Backpack will point out, it's easy to play a team in palette swap that doesn't resemble at all your Marvel 3 team, so you don't get brain overlap. And also, I think specifically palette swap having a slightly extended appeal window from Marvel 3 may be much to its benefit as a survival format. I think quite a few players actually enjoy playing it, specifically because if you say play League of Legends, at some point in time you felt like you were just sitting there and the patch notes did not give one literal shit about what you were actually seeing, or what characters were just so egregious that you didn't want to play the game anymore. I, for one, completely dropped Strive when Happy Chaos was strong, because I just did not have fun when I saw this character often, and his gameplay was miserable. And you can literally message tabs. Like, he has, as of recently, allowed a lot more correspondence about character flaws or characters just feeling weak, or how do I do this? And a lot of the other modders don't want you to overwhelm them, but also do like feedback. And we have, with Kevin, recently been having private tests for characters before they get released, where in times they can have some absolutely earth-shattering redesigns. Like, Jean and Nero have been in a playable state for, I think, 6 months, but based off of early stuff seen during lobbies, I think the developer has decided, in addition to just having to stop for other obligations, to change things up quite a bit based off of feedback. So I think some players are so tapped into palette swap entirely because it is a stack of cards that you can actually manipulate, where other fighting games you'll pick a character you really like. Say, my friend was a jury main in Street Fighter V, and you may wait to the literal last patch of the game before your character is considered viable.
Well, I think it's cool that you mentioned Captain Backpack. I had the privilege of meeting Backpack IRL at TNS9, and I'm sure you did as well. Super cool dude, but Backpack was a pure palette swap player. And I know you know this, but for our audience, Captain Backpack came in. I liked palette swap, learned how to play 3 palette swap characters. I'm not super familiar with that journey. And then I get a random message in the Rise of Rookies mod chat from T-Hawk. He said, "Hey, Captain Backpack's going to be at TNS9," and there's a lot of people in the Rise of Rookies.
Combo Breaker.
What's that?
Combo Breaker.
Was it combo? I thought it was TNS.
Yeah, I was at TNS9. He was at Combo Breaker.
I'm getting my my events confused. I'm getting old. You'll have to excuse me. Not enough caffeine or whatever excuse. I'm wrong. Combo Breaker. I can't even remember can't even remember where I saw the guy first time. How rude of me. I owe him a subscription or something. Yeah, but when I met him, he was, we get a message in the mod chat. He said, Captain Backpack's going to be at combo, and I'm like, well, who's Captain Backpack? There's too many people in my Discord, in the Rise of Rookies Discord, for me to know people by name anymore. It's just getting that hard. So I miss people do fall through the cracks. And he's like, well, no, he's a palette swap player. I was like, well, that's weird. You normally don't really mention palette swap. And he goes, no, he's getting good at regular Marvel. He actually converted from palette swap to regular Marvel. So I think that for the palette swap players, the avenue is available there. And Captain Backpack, that I should say palette swap players that want to get into vanilla Marvel, I think Captain Backpack's a great person to talk to and ask him how he did it, because he learned that while they are still the same base engine, it's still Marvel, and I think it's NTU frameworks. They're two completely different games, honestly. The expanded character roster leads to more unique situations. I mean, you still have your basic systems like X Factor and Advanced Guard and whatnot, but they play almost differently with the different characters involved with the base roster.
I think, though, one thing you can always say that I can appreciate is that I do definitely see a few palette swap players are exceptionally good at the base game, and I can only think that by just forcing them to start fresh twice, it has pushed them to a much higher level, because it may be a total coincidence, but Best Xbox went from a player and often an X Factor he would place, I don't know, around the middle, to being someone who could potentially take all the way to top 3. And and I do think it's very much as you say, the constant play is Pellet Swap offers a great almost vacation for players to constantly grind the basics of the game, cross ups, mix ups, X Factor, pressure, push blocking properly, but have something a little bit different, or not have to face the same characters again. And I think that's where we're going to see these crossover players, where they're going to have to pick up different skill sets for the different metas, because definitely we do not have anything equivalent to Virgil or Zero or Morgan in Palette Swap at the moment, and that's a hard set design concept.
I think I think that's great for palette swap, because we do not need another Morgan or another Zero or another Virgil running around, even though we have another Morgan and another Zero already in palette swap. But they function completely differently. I think one of the biggest things that we both kind of overlook here, we're talking about different systems, but the one similar thing you can gather by playing in both, right? Like we talked about the nuances and the difference between the two, but the one constant you get from both is tournament XP. And I think that is by and large the most valuable piece of experience you will ever be able to get coming out of Rise of Rookies, is that tournament XP. It is a completely different animal playing against somebody in real time than in the lab. And it's an entirely different animal when you sit down physically next to somebody. Does Parsec necessarily fill that void? No, but it will help you with the pressure of playing during thing. Because when you're playing a set sitting next to somebody, you're not thinking about that person sitting next to you. You're focused on the game. Well, that's no different than sitting at your computer with nobody next to you. You get that XP to learn how to play all around. And the more games you play, the more Marvel you play, the more XP you get, the better you become in tournaments. Just because you will have that feeling of oh, I've been here before. The only difference is there's someone right next to me instead of me staring at a computer monitor by myself.
Sure, this is something that you've not heard of. Is this is very meta to the server only? But I actually have a ladder based off of placements at both Clone Engine and Palette Swap because I'm trying to keep an eye on player progression as a data skill for myself, and I think it's also just fun for players.
I think I think it's hard to get value. I don't think. Let me see how to phrase this. I think that getting valuable and meaningful data from Marvel is very difficult. That's kind of the thought process where if I don't know your entire time frame as far as being involved with Marvel. I know you mentioned some retro fighters you were involved in, but I'm not sure of your time frame. Um, there was a time period, a very brief time period, where Marvel was run 2 out of 3, and
Ah,
we quickly learned Marvel is just too goddamn chaotic to run 2 out of 3. That's why we switched to 3 to 5. And I think there's a you can draw a similar line towards trying to record player progression versus I'm sorry, recording placements versus player progressions. We have seen players place abnormally well placements that they would not normally get had they not gotten in extenuating circumstances. Whether or not they got a double buy into top 8, whether or not half the bracket DQ'd, so they got a free ride into top 16, whatever you want to call it. They got hit by 3 random helm breakers with Pixel at 1 HP, like games, just random Marvel things. I think it's hard to say that a player's progression is directly tied to performance. I think in order for that to be meaningful, you really have to extrapolate that over a very, very, very long time period to begin to say this player made meaningful progression. I think a great example of that from the rookie cord was TJ. We talk about TJ with such reverence, but TJ did struggle the first 6 months. He was having good placements, but they weren't like, oh, is he doing that well, or is it because of his opponents? And it wasn't until he made that adjustment after that 6 month that he kind of hit the ground running, and his performance and then his placements began to reflect who he was as a player. Whereas someone like me, I'm really only going to make a top 24 in TNS on the loser side, or if I get a really weird buy situation. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily a bad player. Like you would look second. You look at me secondly in a bracket, but if you were to say, "Oh, I made top 24 at TNS, I'm a really good player," that's not necessarily painting the whole picture.
I'll be blatantly transparent about this. I have heavily biased the ladder so that if you play reliably, you are statistically going to break even with most of the other players who play reliably and place beyond like the lowest rung of the tournament or bracket event. Is it's a clever social manipulation trick to show players that the only thing that technically matters is for them to come out, win or lose, and just play. So I like creating little tools that motivate players through psychological goodwill. As I think sometimes seeing yourself rising up the ladder feels incredibly good. This is something I've experienced playing a couple other games. And no, I get that what you said also completely. That's like all these adjustments were based off the fact that even with X Factory, we have on average 1 Evo champ, sometimes 2 Evo champs, and a couple players who can potentially take them out. Like we have multiple players who on their best days are potentially best in the game. Like we've had Noel be hungry. We have Memes May Cry, Art, Yuli, Remora, Mothman, some nights best Xbox, some nights even Living Legend. Like And a couple other like players, like we've had occasional visits from Priest or Angelic if they feel they want to play just once or twice. Heck, we've had TJ once or twice even. And yeah, you cannot reliably win Marvel 3 anymore tell much about like players being the best because so many little interactions will play out, specifically with all the wandering gods that exist in this game now.
Yeah, it seems like anybody can. This is a good thing. We're at a point in Marvel where there is no true top dog. There is no Sonic Fox in Marvel, right? Like,
Jabril's gone,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, Jabril was kind of seen as that guy. Chris G for a while was seen as that guy. Ryan LV was seen as that guy, but I would probably say since the start of the Parsec era, that kind of god status, the watcher, that we all should be scared of, that doesn't really exist anymore, right? We've seen we've seen Lib lose, we've seen Remora lose, and like these players that we generally see as like the top of the mountain, is no longer a peak; it's more of a plateau, almost. Any one of those guys can take out any other of those guys, and the people climbing that plateau generally do have a shot to do it as well.
And then you have the old gods occasionally coming out and also still making huge forces. Like it's super rare, but you'll see Punisher or Reedman, and yeah, they still are absolutely in contention for Evo top slot players.
Well, hell, you see Chris G in a bracket, and you're like, well, how much gold is he taking away this weekend? Dude is a literal walking
And
trophy case.
then occasionally he'll lose to one of the new generation players, a Mundank, who when they're hitting their sauce, seemingly cannot be stopped. Heck, like God, I'm talking about someone who has leveled up to that recently, Sactap. Like,
Oh my god,
holy
yeah.
hell, is he good now?
So I played. I was at a Big E event in Jersey. And I can't remember what year, but Sactap had won Marvel. It was, relatively small bracket, whatever. And I saw his team. I didn't see him like I wasn't actually analyzing his play. I was just kind of walking by and I saw him playing this like low tier team, and I thought, oh, I'm hot shit. I can play Sactap. So I challenged him a $5 money match, and I switched teams after every single loss and got 5-0 and humiliated. And he just kind of looked at me, shook my hand. He's like, "It's okay, bud. You tried." Uh, but Sactap, I think, is another one of those is another great example of a player that put his time in, plays this kind of, not even kind of, this low tier team, and he just makes it work because he's a really, really fundamentally sound player. Um, I think he's a great example of how you can make that work, and that kind of segues to what we were talking about earlier about these low tier hero types coming in, and how the newer generation wants to kind of replicate that.
What inspires you can sometimes have a huge change factor to teams. Is like this matters very little because no one will remember this, but like in Soul Calibur 2, like a lot of characters that were considered high tier now were considered pretty low tier then because a lot of them have like short range. And I remember like I was playing against a friend who was playing a character that was just so much faster than me. So like I was playing, I thought, oh, I've got a big range, I've got a big stick, I cannot miss, and I got ruined. So I went, picked up a new character, being the Ninja Taki, and I don't think I've lost around to him since. And it's like being true to yourself sometimes means experimentation. Like if you play one team, it's always worth occasionally, like specifically in the era of tech, trying out another character once or twice to see if there's a chance you do like them. Like I have recently been trying Spencer with Wesker because with slant shot you can get mid screen mix.
Yep.
And if I could do his combos, I probably would swap. I really like Spencer. But
I mean,
super high execution character.
you just gotta practice, and that's. I mean, I know that sounds kind of easy to say, but a lot of issues that we see come through the rookie cord And I'm pretty sure you can probably tell by the things that you're analyzing with Kevin. A lot of players just don't want to take the time to learn, right? They just want to do the lightning loops, and they're like, "Oh, I just want to do it. I don't want to learn how to do it." Or like, "This character's cool, but I don't want to learn how." And I'm not saying you don't want to do it, because you've been around the block once or twice in fighting games, so you know you have to practice. Um, but what Alan Iyer said about practice does not hold true. Putting the time into this game will pay dividends. Simply switching your character may help you in the short term, but it's not going to solve the long-term problem of why you had that issue.
The mindset.
Exactly. And for anybody that's coming into Palette Swap, that's coming into Clone Engine or Marvel, or anybody just learning a new fighting game, learning a new character, learning a new concept in anything, it's just life lessons, man. Keep an open mind about it. Keep an open mind. Try to learn it. Do your best at trying to learn it. And if you still can't learn it, or you learn it and you don't like it, okay. You spent 10 minutes or you spent 10 hours, whatever, how long you spent, but you can comfortably say, I tried it and I don't like it. You feel good about yourself because, yeah, you failed, but you failed and you tried your hardest. That's more positive than negative, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. This for one to your earlier statement about people not wanting to practice. I'm a substitute teacher, so I'm very familiar with people not wanting to do homework recently. But no, and there's very few accolades specifically at my current point in time that I can actually flex in any capacity, because I know I'm not very good at this game, and I know because of the damage my fingers suffered that I can only play roughly with my thumbs and like my forefingers.
Mhm.
So like hold button characters are almost impossible with me, because I run my other digits are just not reliable, or my muscle memory because of the strange repetitive strain injury will malfunction. It makes my typing absolutely egregious.
Yeah.
But as a commenter, I still, every time a new character comes out, spend at least an hour and a half in the lab, so I know what the character can do well enough that I'll actually be able to translate it to people watching, because commentary is a huge role in Marvel more than other games, where I can do Street Fighter. Like I can do both Guilty Gear and Street Fighter. I've picked them up. I want to learn Tekken at some point for commentary, but like they have enough fundamentals that cross over. So a cross up is a cross up. A good condition is a good condition. A fear of the throw setup makes perfect sense, no matter if it's Guilty Gear or if it's Street Fighter 6. Marvel 3 doesn't have that. Like the goal of a commenter in Marvel 3 is very much to know your characters well enough that you can explain the situation. Like I'll describe moments where I can predict something like an amazing player like DXP does. I see his meter and I'm like, DXP has to reset here. His team cannot function if he doesn't get this next hit, because he doesn't have X, and he likes to spend all of his bars straight to zero. That's just the DXP thing. It makes him a very scary player. But like, no, I have to watch the situation. I have to know my characters, and like labbing is in itself such a crucial skill, specifically to Marvel. There are definitely games where I think labbing is less important in terms of just, oh, go play ranked. That's definitely something you could argue about Street Fighter 6 at the moment. But like Marvel 3 is the mindset, the familiar for your character, the ability to use it as part of your body, and the most controversial topic of whether or not you need to learn to blink.
I mean, if you're setting me up for a what do you think about plinking question, which
I can't do it.
I think plinking is a fundamental skill that every high level Marvel player needs to learn or should have. And I think that because the, just the extra frames you get by plinking versus wave dashing or just standard dashing, for most of the cast, is great. Like you have your Wolverines that have a really weird like plink dash, and it's almost better to wave dash. But as a fundamental tool, I think just being able to do it is invaluable. It makes it so much easier to at least go from character to character and have some sort of baseline standpoint in movement. Marvel, you will win and lose more games on movement alone in this game than anything else, any other game. Maybe Tekken can be argued because you have sidestepping and 3D fighters, but if you can move amazingly, you will never have to worry about your defense because you're not getting hit. I had a really weird take where I said I think defense is better to be able to do, but when you really think about it, being able to defend against hits is good. Not getting hit at all is better.
Hmm. And certain characters, like this is something I'm sadly unable to do, and I've always wanted to do. Is Wesker, if you can perfect blink moves at such an absurdly fast forward or backward speed, that yeah, you don't actually have to do anything to play neutral in some cases. You plink at the opponent, they swing at you, you plink backwards, call an assist, plink forward, throw a teleport into the mix, and you have managed to play the neutral without actually hitting a combat button until you set up your teleport.
Yeah, I mean, Wesker has like this. I think the second fastest ground dash in the game, next to Iron Fist or something like that. I haven't looked at the values, but it's up there. Just even glasses on Wesker is crazy. But yeah, exactly what you said. It not only does it help you defensively, it helps you offensively. It allows you to begin to condition your opponent. Somebody that's consistently wave dashing is a little more choppier. It's a little easier to, figure out if they're actually trying to condition you or if they're just kind of, making it look like they're doing something. Whereas, plinking back and forth, there's not a lot of tell with what they're doing. Especially characters that can, like you said, that have good special cancels out of a plink. Like you said, Wesker plink dash teleport is crazy good. The little extra stutter there, it just forces the opponent to stop and think like, oh crap, like is he actually going to teleport on me? Is he doing something different? Is he trying to mask it? Like it forces that extra second to think. And then, oh no, Wesker's in your face now. And what is he going to do? Is he going to hit you low? Is he going to command grab? It creates a second layer of mind grave games that wave dashing and your general movement options just don't give you. I think that's probably one of the the second biggest positive of learning to plink is the offensive capabilities of properly using plink dashes.
Mhm. I joke that other than Super Smash Bros. Melee, I think Marvel 3 is one of the few games that uses speedrunning glitches extensively in its neutral.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if for the newer players or the people that just don't know, plink dashing is not an intended feature of Marvel. That is 100% something we found, and we realized, wait a minute, that's not supposed to work like that. But we just keep it in. We don't get patches, so we kept it in, and it'd be impossible to enforce a plink dash rule in tournament. Are you crazy? Uh, but it's plink dashing is the equivalent of our backwards long jumping, our wrong warps, our screen scrolls. If you're a fan of the Sonic series, and we embrace it like any other speedrun community. We treat it with reverence, and if you want to be good at the game, you generally have to do it.
And of course, so I don't necessarily have any more questions or topics, but if you have anything else to ask, or if you'd like to leave an endorsement, this is certainly your avenue.
I mean, first of all, I cannot thank you enough. You've been a wonderful host. First experience ever doing a podcast, whether hosting or answering questions. So thank you for letting me do that. You can catch me over on the Rookie Cord, Rise of Rookies. We'll be back streaming our brackets here this month, as well as getting regular rookie content out to you guys. But thank you to yourself, to all of the modders. I know that your show is more generally focused towards palette swap, and I appreciate you giving your community the opportunity to learn the throughway between base Marvel and palette swap. So thank you to you, to your team that will be putting this together, to all the modders out there, and thank you to everybody that's a fan of Marvel, guys. I know we jokingly say it, but as somebody that works as a TO that is founded a tournament organization that works alongside other TOs, we legitimately cannot do this without your guys' support. You guys may thank us, but you will never hear a TO worth their salt only say thank you. They will always thank you back, because without you guys, we don't get to do this. So thank you to the community for allowing us to continue to put on great events for you.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you would like to support Rise of Rookies, you can subscribe to their Twitch, buy their merch, any other.
Don't think I have anything else. The rookie team will be at our next event. Will be East Coast Throwdown. We actually haven't formally announced it, so Tim, this will be your first hearing. And Long Island, I hope you're ready. But Rise of Rookies is absolutely going to body your shit. They challenged us to a 7v7. Still working on the logistics, but a 7v7 at East Coast Throwdown. So Long Island, I hope you bring your big boy pants, because it ain't gonna be pretty.
That's pretty awesome. Is like, I wish I had money to go out to more events. The next event I'll be going to is probably Cream City, and that's because I'm volunteering. And it's in state, but
I've never heard of that, if I'm going to be completely honest with you.
It's a new event, Cream City Convergence. It's a 1-day Tekken World Tour Capcom tour stop.
Oh, that's cool.
In the Cream City, Milwaukee of Wisconsin, but sounds like something excellent. And yeah, again, I always appreciate rookies coming on. In the event that you have other topics or things you want to say in the future, I said that I have an open sofa policy in the Discord server for this. So I'm going to say this on the air per se. So for players or other people who want to get involved with this, you can DM me and I'll invite you to the Discord. And then I have a schedule for when I'm taping a next episode and who can be available for the couch. This is mostly palette swap, but topics are breaching wider topics. I'm not going to be a T channel. It's not my cup of tea, no pun intended, but I'm eager to talk about everything in the sphere in general, and my skill set lends itself to wanting to be as wide as possible, because otherwise I'm going to start repeating myself, and I hate that so much.
I think there's definitely a need for something along these lines for the Marvel community specifically. Like, you do have, like, Yipes and Tasty Steve and their podcasts and whatnot, but those are more generalized history of Marvel. And don't get me wrong, those are two awesome guys, and their storytelling is phenomenal. I'll never be able to be a storyteller along those lines. I'm not that cool, and I don't have that many stories. But I think this is a great avenue to kind of expand on just the general world of Marvel and the goings on. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, that you're undertaking, and I look forward to hopefully working with you again on it in the future. So thank you so much.
And I've been the Wizard Tim, and this has been the unbelievable PA Sword, and we'll be signing off for this segment.